So here over the past few weeks, I've been saying consistently that the transfer portal is really about to heat up. And today, Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide dipped back into the transfer portal to grab one of the most explosive players in all of college football, former Louisville wide receiver Tyler Harrell, and we need to break down not only why this is so big for Alabama's offense, but what it means overall. And before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I need to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no. Are you excited that Tyler Harrell joins the Crimson Tide? And let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. We are on our push to 15,000 subscribers, and I would love to have you a part of this awesome community. And if you enjoyed the content, like and comment down below, as those interactions are massive to content creators such as myself. But with all that being said, we need to break down why this is such a big win for Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide offense. Tyler Harrell, a former Louisville wide receiver, is no doubt one of the most explosive players in all of college football. He finished the year last year just shy, and I do mean just shy, at 0.9 yards shy of 30 yards per reception for the year, which is incredible production. And when you see that, you already know that this is an explosive player. He's one of the fastest players in college football, recording a 10.37 in high school, and he's only continued to get faster after that. Alabama is absolutely looking to utilize this speed to be able to keep defenses honest, to be able to keep defenses respecting the ability for them to go over the top. But in doing so, you're inevitably opening up the underneath. And one thing we need to realize is in Tyler Harrell, he's not just a deep threat guy. Absolutely, he's a guy that you feel comfortable saying, go get it, and having him outrun the defense, because they're not going to be able to keep up. But he's also a guy that you can give it to on a mesh route and have him take it the entire way. He's got big playability written all over him, and that's why this is such a big move for Alabama. This isn't just a go route type guy. He can absolutely do that and do that at an incredibly high level, but he's got a deeper skill set than that. And that deeper skill set makes it that much more difficult for a defense that already know he can burn you deep, but now have to worry about the work he can put in on the underneath. And speaking of what he can do on the underneath, it's not just about what he can do for the Tide's offense. Even when he doesn't have the ball, his very presence is going to make a defense question what's coming next. And when the Tide dipped in the transfer portal earlier this offseason and grabbed Jermaine Burton, a very talented wide receiver, now when you have these two playing off of each other, I think that there are very exciting things on the horizon for the Crimson Tide wide receiver room. Because with those two playing after each other, it's going to be very difficult to stop what Alabama wants to throw at you. And we can take this another level whenever we look in the slot position, where we do have to kind of project who could be there because there's several different names that could absolutely find their way there. However, at the end of the day, we do realize that with this addition, with Jermaine Burton, with an individual such as JoJo Earl, with Christian Leary, with Aaron Anderson, Kendrick Law, and the freshmen coming in, not to mention a Tyu Jones-Bell and a Trayshawn Holden, there's a lot of options now at that wide receiver room. I've been saying for a while, I think that wide receiver talent at Alabama is very intriguing, especially some of these younger guys. But the addition of a Tyler Harrell gives you a proven wide receiver at the Division I level to take some pressure off of Jermaine Burton, and I think that's going to be paramount. I thought that the Crimson Tide wide receiver room had a lot to prove going forward, but that if they could get it figured out, they could have some ability to be big playmakers. Now, I think that this wide receiver room is going to be very exciting. But we also need to talk about why this is so big, because we talk at length about how sensational Nick Saban is as a recruiter. We talk at length about how he is the GOAT in terms of on the field. But whenever you're talking about the shifting landscapes of college football, we need to understand that this is an individual that has somehow been able to stay at the forefront of every turn in college football. And that is interesting on multiple different levels. Whenever you're talking about these coaches that have been legendary in one facet or another, with Nick Saban, you're talking about not only a legendary coach, but legendary in what he's meant for the defensive side of the football in college football with his defenses. Whenever you're talking about those individuals, it's very easy for them to get stuck in their ways, and for the most part, why wouldn't they? They've been doing something that's worked for decades, and then when college football and that landscape shifts, they can be left behind. But that has not been Nick Saban. In fact, when the landscape shifts, he figures out how he can shift to be just at the forefront of it, if not ahead of it. And that's what really separates Nick Saban, in my opinion. We can talk about the recruiting, and that's incredible, how through different generations, he's been able to recruit at an incredibly high level. And he was used as a really ace recruiter during his time at Michigan State and very early in his career, if you really go back and look up Nick Saban. But it's also his ability to relate to the modern game. Whenever massive changes happen, such as NIL, Nick Saban issued a warning not long ago, very similar to the warning he issued in the transfer portal era. And we see how that's played out, where Alabama hasn't taken a lot of guys from the transfer portal, but goodness gracious, look at the talent they've gotten. You're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, the #1 running back available, the #1 wide receiver available in Jermaine Burton, now Tyler Harrell, which those two, I mean, that's such a great 1-2 punch out the transfer portal for Alabama. That right there, I could speak for days about how excited I am with this addition paired with Jermaine Burton. I am over the moon with that. But then you look, Eli Ricks is now going to be battling for a position next to Quincy McKinstry, and inevitably, whoever wins that, you have got a lot of faith in your secondary. And because the game is spreading out, you're finding yourself in dime packages more and more often. And so having the faith that you have multiple individuals in that defensive backfield that you can turn to and be confident that they're going to get the job done is necessary now in college football. But even outside of Ricks, then you look at a Tyler Steen, who could be a massive addition to this tackle room and to the offensive line that does need some help. Now, one thing I will say, as it was pointed out yesterday, Alabama's offensive line is in a precarious position. I have some concerns, although I'll say that lightly. One thing we do need to remember, presumptive starters didn't practice during the spring. It's hard for an offensive line to gel when the entirety of the unit isn't there. You're trying to replace Evan Neal, which that's going to be difficult. J.C. Latham has shown some great things, and I'm very happy he's at where he's at. But with the addition of Steen and getting those guys back healthy, all of a sudden when you start looking at the line, if Latham can continue to progress and Steen is who we think he is, and the guys get back healthy, this is an offensive line that could be improved. It's going to be up to the coaching staff to get them there, but in theory, there is a way to alleviate the concerns on the offensive line, and certainly one of the ways to do that is by making sure a defense knows, if you try and blitz, we're going to make you pay with the weapons we have, such as a Jahmyr Gibbs, such as a Jermaine Burton, and such as a Tyler Harrell. So this is such a great win for Alabama football in terms of getting in a player of this magnitude. Alabama has already got very talented pieces, but getting in a Tyler Harrell, this is the type of addition that sets you over top. This is addition that excites the fan base, and I can't wait to see how all of this plays out, especially once Isaiah Bond and Shaz Preston get on campus, because I think by the fall, this wide receiver room could be a strength for the Crimson Tide, and I can't wait to hear from you all about it. That's it. See ya.